Good evening and welcome to the Vigilante Dialogues. I am your host, Shaina Smith, welcoming you to Season 4 of the National Boardroom. The objective of our program, as always, is to talk about the affairs and community issues, but to more importantly, highlight the solutions and not just complain about the problems. The last time we kicked off the year with our guest, Mr. Dixon Igwe, or economics layman, as he termed himself, and the importance of understanding what the economy is and what it means to our everyday quality of life. So we want to thank him for coming by and sharing the information that he did, and definitely he'll be back, because I think we kind of cut off in the midway, so we definitely want to get him back. The Vigilante Dialogues is sponsored by National Bank of the Virgin Islands, Therapy Works, BVI, and Smith & Associates. Now, before we get into our next conversation, tonight we're going to be continuing in the same vein of nation building. And I want to dedicate this show to my brother, Roy Hodge, who passed this week, because that was basically his ethos in life, where we talk about passion for country. He embodied that for me. So I want to say condolences to our family, as it were, because he's part of the West End community. And he's actually family. So, that's how it goes. So my guest tonight is no stranger also to our topic. And I want to welcome, for the first time, and I hope it won't be the last, Honorable Andrew A. Fahie, 1st District Representative. Honorable Fahie.
Yes, well, it's a pleasure to be here. God's blessings to everyone tonight. Thank you for having me. I thought the show last week with Brother Dixon Igwe was excellent. I did get to see
Thank you.
And I hope I won't disappoint tonight. Blessings to everyone, and Happy New Year to all of the listening audience that I have not seen for this new year.
Yeah, we got to do that. I still tell people Happy New Year.
Yes.
Until this week is up and the month is gone.
Yes.
It's still a Happy New Year. So let's jump right into it. When it comes to nation building, you're no stranger to this, because you've been in politics over 16 years.
14.
How long?
14.
14. Okay, you're almost there. So, but let's start out, because I know you on a personal level as being a teacher. When I was a junior in high school, you returned home from college. And that's where you started basically your professional career. So what was the impetus behind you choosing a change of career and going into politics?
That's a good question. I more think that it chose me. Because in 1995, while I was teaching, I ran, and to be honest, knowing that I couldn't win, but for the experience of it. And then I put it away. I never thought that I would do it again. But in 99, a group of persons approached me, and I decided, after a long contemplation, I never used to pray as much as now, but after long contemplation, I gave it a shot. And so 99 was it. I got in it for the reason that I always felt that I wanted to do more for the people of the BVI. And just like in teaching, I always wanted to make sure that I leave the BVI better than I met it. So I got in it for those reasons. It has its challenges, but you turn those challenges into opportunities.
Yeah, and that's actually my next question, in terms of what's the least rewarding aspect of the job and what's the most rewarding?
The most rewarding is to learn that the things what happen to you in politics, to use them not to become bitter. The challenges, use them to become better.
Okay.
And one of the things that I learned in politics after a while is to make sure that you don't fight off of emotions, fight off of principle. So
not taking it personal.
Right. And not pursuing anything out of emotions, trying to win the crowd, because it's short-lived. In the early part of my political career, at times I did that, and I realized as I mature in it, that you must always fight on a principle, because principles don't change.
Yeah.
Once you fight from a principle, you'll be okay, even if it doesn't look so in the beginning. So it allowed me to mature as a person. It allowed me to learn to hear twice as much, because you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, and speak less. Before, when I got earlier in politics, I used to speak more and listen less. But with the wisdom, you learn to hear more and speak less. Yeah.
So as far as I guess you rolled everything up in one, as far as what's most rewarding, what's least rewarding, as far as wanting to make that impact on the country and, leaving things better than you met it. And I always tell people that that's so key with anything that we do in our community, that we're doing it from a right motive.
Right.
Okay. In terms of where we are now politically, we're not going to talk too much politics tonight because I know some people are going to get nervous. Oh, we have a politician. This is politics. But like I always say on the program, that politics is about everyday life.
Right.
Because nothing happens in the country where policies or laws or regulations aren't involved some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So, you know, it's important for us to be educated in it and want to know more about it.
Yes.
When it comes to political reform, are there any changes having been in the system for as long as you have? What would you see needs to be improved, or, you know, anything that jumps out at you? When we hear the word political reform, because we hear it thrown around a lot, but exactly what would that mean to you?
Well, after being in it for a few years, you realize that no man is an island. And the Westminster model that we have, because we're under the UK, is one, if I had my way, would be revisited and relooked. Because to have 13 persons elected, and I'm not saying this now because I'm in opposition. I've shared this view within the last about 7 years. I've taken this position, and only after you were finished with the election to only have 5 in control of the destiny of the country, because the 5 ministers, independent of who they are, independent of what political party it is, because I'm speaking independent now.
Yeah.
And the rest just there by the way. Some will disagree and say no, they have input, but let's face it, it's almost by the way.
Decisions, decisions, and then they are in the cabinet.
The 5 ministers go to the cabinet, and you don't have any guarantee at any time, no matter what government you're in, that the 5 ministers will carry over the discussions, the input into the cabinet. And whether I'm the minister or not, this is independent of that. So to see how we could more use the 13 officials in a more productive way for the territory. Because, you know, everyone have their ideas, everyone have their different level of skills, different level of education. And everyone is a leader in their own right, because when you win a seat, what the people are saying for you in that area is that I want you to lead me in this area, whether it be the district or territorial. So to get everyone working together for one common good, because at the end of the day, there's only one BVI, and at the end of the day,
all of us have to live with the decisions
we have to live with the decisions made. Yeah. And it is to make decisions that present and future generations would benefit from. And the older you get, the wiser you're supposed to get with the experience that you get. So you learn that whatever decision you make, how will it affect me? How will it affect my children? How would it affect the generations to come? So I like to see reform done where we could be more useful for the 13 officials. Other reform I'd also like to see too is where you have more dialogue in the future of upcoming legislation. Okay. When I analyze the system of you get a piece of legislation that you want to approve, and as I said, this has been.
So how far in advance do you guys get the bills?
Well, if you in the opposition, you in general, not now, but this is speaking in general, you get the bills probably 4 days before the house convenes. Because usually around that time is when you get them, and then you have to peruse the bills. But if there are about 7 or 8 of them, you have to peruse 7 or 8 bills. I'm not one of those who get in politics and feel that I know it all because you land there. Some
still learning.
Subjects, still learning, but some subjects I'm not expert in. Yeah. So you would need to get more help to make sure that you are making the right decision. Not for this generation, for generations to come. Because if it is good, then it can be discussed. Yeah. Something cannot be too good for me not to be discussed by me. Yeah. So one of the areas I have, and this is whether I'm in government or not, that I'd like to see reform in, is to have it where we bring the bills and we allow for those bills to be discussed and allow for more of whether it's 2/3 of the House to be able to pass the bills. Rather than you have the government, you have the numbers, and you could just bring a bill, then after that get a second and third reading and it becomes a law. And depending on how the marketing is done by whoever is in power, if you oppose sections of it, it seems like you're negative. But you have to have discussions because these bills come to be law. And these
And they
laws
gonna
affect people's lives
yeah.
for generations to come.
And
So those are some of
oftentimes
the areas.
it's not until you run into them
Exactly.
then you realize, oh wait, you know, where this law come from, or where did this rule come from?
Exactly.
That we weren't aware of before. So that is something I definitely would endorse as far as, you know, publication of them, because it's something I know they do in the US. I'm not sure about the UK.
Yeah.
But where after they're presented, there's the public forum where it's displayed,
Right.
that you can go through it and give comments.
Yes.
Because it only could make it stronger
Right.
at the end of the day, because again, you know, we pay our legal minds well, but they can't think of everything in
Exactly.
terms of how is this going to impact Shaina? How is this going to impact
Right.
my father? How is this going to impact my children?
And the
You
legal
know.
minds, remember, they only check in to see if it is legal.
The functionality of it is different.
Different,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah. And that's something where, for us, some of the people, even on one show I was doing at the end of the year, where we were talking about pure politics, meaning politics is refined, filtered form. It's really about looking about governance structures. What's the best way to run the country?
Right.
You know, in fairness to all.
Yeah, you're right.
And not just, you know, certain things are done in favor for certain set of people versus another set. And, you know, being real about it,
Yes.
that the things that we do in politics, it affects us now and in years to come.
Exactly.
You know, so we have to be very careful.
I
But
agree.
I think as far having been around the last election and having worked in government behind the scenes, I tell people, when you work in government, you have a whole different philosophy in terms of how you approach your society, because you understand both behind the scenes and as well as on the street.
Right.
You know, if you're engaged in your community, you'll
Exactly.
see where, you know, there's a dichotomy that exists. It is nothing that you can really do away with. It will always be there. But it's
Yes.
important to know how to live in it.
Exactly.
And make sure that your voice is heard and that things are being done a certain way that, you know, you're happy with at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Because to live in a society, not be complaining all the time. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
We have to stop this complaining. I see us be doing. But anyway, that's another show. So, question for you.
Yes.
And I asked you before we started, as far as one of the themes that I want to carry out this year is, who are we building this country for? And what specifically, I should say now, as we start to hone in on it, what are the priorities that you see, let's say 3 priorities that you see we need to be focusing on for the next 5 years?
Oh, well, the priorities there for the next 5 years for sure is going to be the economy, the youth of the territory, and in terms of our social makeup of the territory. Those are 3 areas along with health.
Okay.
Because I firmly believe once you have a strong faith in God, good health, sound education, everything else can take care of itself. So that's my personal belief that I've grown strongly in over the last few years. The youth must be the reason that we're building the country. And when I speak on the youth, sometimes I get in trouble because some people misunderstand and think that I'm still drooling about being Minister of Education over youth. But the youth is not a ministry problem. It's not a government problem.
It's a national.
It's a territorial national problem, as you rightfully stated. We have to be careful of doing so much for them that we end up doing nothing for them. In that, for example, some parents say that they grew up very hard and they want their children to have it better than them. That is normal for any parent.
Yeah.
But when you start to go to the point of working 2-3 jobs to get it better for them, and you're not checking in with them with their school work, you're not checking in with them with who they're hanging out with, when you look, you might have built the home that you desired for them, but you build a house, but you can't have a home because the child is not there in terms of behavior, in terms of excelling academically. So we have to be mindful that while we are building for the youth, we can't build without the youth.
Yeah.
And this is one of the areas that we have some challenges in.
Yeah.
We're forgetting to check in with them. We're forgetting to keep track of them. And parents are like, I like to say, parents are like railroad tracks. The children are the train, but we with the railroad tracks, they guide them. And if you forget to do that, they born empty is what you put in them. So I don't know any child that bonds rude or bonds dumb. That's not so. They're born as blessings from God, and you have to do your job as a parent. So once we as a community come to understand that, and if they're weak in areas, you have to look for the help. Because they're the men and women of tomorrow. But if you want to know about tomorrow, you just look at today.
Yep.
And when you see what is happening today, you have to be sounding some kind of alarm.
Yeah.
But is it too late? The answer is no. That's why I'm passionate about things like for example, maybe the homework program for those who can't afford it. Is for me, it's not about a vote. If it comes, well, so be it. But they can't vote anyway. But I have daughters. If you ignore the gentlemen, the young guys that are struggling, they might become your son-in-law.
So it's going to still be a problem right in your house.
Yes. So you ignore it, it's going to come home.
Yeah.
If you have sons, the girls that you're ignoring could be your daughter-in-law. So we have to become a brother's keeper because we're in a global market, and we have to push our children to be the best that they can be. Having said that, we have to now create economic opportunities that when they get their degrees, when they get their certificates, where do they fit in?
Yeah.
I'm a firm belief that when we say that we have to diversify our economy, it cannot be doing the same things over and over and expecting
different results. It's
a failed experiment.
And we're going to touch on that in terms of things, but we're going to take a quick commercial break. But something that you said just reminded me of, I went to the BVI Business Outlook conference where the theme was taking our game to the next level.
Right.
And I think that's such an important theme across the board, especially in those areas you talked about.
Yes.
And it was something where the Chief Minister of Gibraltar said that this is our century, talking about the UK OTs, and that the Premier of Bermuda, he also said something else interesting in terms of doing what is right and not necessarily politically right. And I found that to be so profound coming out of a politician's mouth.
Yes.
Because a lot of times, people feel that, a politician will always be guided by the next vote, right? And in some cases it is, some cases it isn't. But one of the sessions was called How Not to Become Roadkill in a Global Economy. And it was highlighting the importance of education and training, which is what you touched on. So we're going to come back now and start to dissect some of these things in terms of how, when we talk about economy being a priority, what exactly about the economy we need to be looking about and talking about so that we are doing the right things to get the right results.
Exactly.
That's what it has to be about. So we're going to take a quick break and get a word from our sponsors and be right back. Welcome back. You're tuned in to the National Boardroom right here on the Vigilante Dialogues. I'm your host, Shaina Smith. Tonight, our topic is Nation Building Part 2. And with me, I have one of our builders, the Honorable Andrew Afoy, 1st District Representative, here sharing his thoughts about where we are politically as a country, where we are as socially, and what are priorities that we need to be looking at over the next few years. We just heard the budget speech, 2014 budget speech from our Premier, Dr. Orlando Smith, and the theme was towards stability and growth, which are some of the words you were talking about. And I think, again, these are some key things that were mentioned. But I'm always, as an engineer, looking for the operational planning and how we're going to make it happen. But in general, what were your thoughts on the speech? Because I talked about this last week as far as some of the things that stood out for me. One of them being that we're striving for an overall surplus by 2016. So in general, overall, where do you think we are in terms of what he laid out as the plan for this year?
Well, that... let me say it as objectively as I can. The surplus is one in which no one could argue for putting money into the reserves. The quantity that's going in the reserve and the time frame that is going in, given how the economy is where my concern is. But I am 100% for putting money in the reserve. It's something that I tried my best to urge when I was in government from my side to ask them to do. But I'm only one person. But we have to find a balance with what we're saving and how we're putting it in the economy in a meaningful way so that we can have a domino effect. Because there's no secret that the economy is straining right now. and persons feeling the effect. It's a global economy, but I feel that certain things that we can do locally to stimulate the economy. Because if the economy is not well and persons are not meeting their bills, there's a social impact. Crime increases. Right now, we understand that reported crime, and you know, being that I'm a statistics, I listen to words. Reported crime is down 14%. But we all know that if everything has unreported crime, where that would be. But all of this is a result of staggering economies, whether here or anywhere in the world. So for me, I heard some areas of the speech that sounded good. But as I said, no, I didn't hear any wow factor that would cause us to say, well, all right, we're going to do something significant. Because we have new industries that we have to do to complement all the industries or existing industries for choice awards. And we have to get industries that will allow our people to benefit from them. It's not all industries. We have everything that we need here, this is my opinion, to fix our economy with assistance from others here and outside. Rather than having others fix our economy with assistance from us.
The other way around.
And that's what I firmly feel. And that's why I don't only say these things without bringing something to the table. I have an unpopular view to some about the first-time homeowners with the Social Security and independence of politics. I feel that it will stimulate the economy because most of our children, our young people, when they come back from school, they're behind financially. And most of our people that are here who send them to school are behind for sending them to school because college is not cheap. So when you reach home and you already have a disadvantage economically, and your government's role must put systems in place to help the weak to get stronger and to help the strong to become even stronger. Because every time you do that, there will always be a cycle of people who are weak and they'll always go around, independent of political interference. So when you can look at the Social Security, not having a home is a social problem. And when you can look at that scheme there, we invested the money abroad, and whether it be the interest or the actual money that was lost, over $40 million was lost. But no one said anything about that money. So I see no problem with investing about $10 to $15 million every 2 years to build 27 homes. Have our contractors involved with a ceiling of about $350,000. Let the board deal with it without the political interference. Have the project managers, the engineers, the architects, all our people who went away to study. This will now be opening doors for them to actually do some of the work that they got their degrees in. Having them pay back this money, and when they become within 2 years or like being able to approach a commercial bank so that they can repay the money, get on their feet with the commercial bank, pay back the money so the cycle can start again.
Okay, so then it's basically like creating a homeowners fund.
For a homeowners fund.
Fund the program.
That will allow
of homeownership.
For people to do that, because that is one area. We have other areas like what we are good in, the performing arts industry, the ways that we can make revenue from this that our young people will be interested in. We have a young people in the technology age. How can we use them to take their skills, whether it be through gaming or whatever the case may be, to develop our tourism product, to develop other products. So we cannot be thinking inside the box for a generation that's already outside of the box. And that's what I was looking for more so in the budget speech along many other lines.
As far as strategies.
Right. Now, because with doing a housing program and you building on your technical school programs, which I am for, because I'm not for anyone who says that nothing has been done for technical education, because we are a young nation in technical education and in the special needs. We're still growing, but work have been done. But now with that program getting the homes, you can make a stipulation that each contractor must employ, whether apprenticeship or otherwise, at least 5 at minimum students from the technical schools.
Okay, so then it's tying it in basically to existing programs as far as, you know, everybody feeds into everybody.
Right.
one of the things for me, though, especially having worked in the Ministry of Finance, because we know the ideal situation really is that you have a very strong private sector that drives your economy. And for many years, this has not been the case, where the big player has always been government. And government needs money to spend. So one thing that I think I noted in terms of missing was, where is the additional money going to come from? Because when I see, I think it was 1% growth overall, which I think is referring more so to the economy than revenue increasing, that in order to do some of these things now that we're talking about, as far as, you know, kicking them off, also one of the important things in there was the pension fund for the public service that is so badly needed. I cannot underline it enough. Because, you know, if that's not dealt with, that's an issue where persons are going to come to retirement in the next few years, and, you know, it's basically going to become so great for the government, it's going to be like, you know, we can't do it. So where does the money, where does the revenue generators need to come from in the next 5 years for the government service? So we know we can look at trimming the waste. That's always one area, because, you know, that was also one of the topics that they talked about as far as efficiency of government. And Bermuda did, they actually had a commission called SAGE, focusing on overhauling the service, as it were, looking for where they could make reductions in spending, consolidation in purchasing, all of those types of things. I mean, and then that's where too, I think the senators took a pay cut that was kind of setting the stage for everybody else to forego some type of sacrifice to get things back on track. But when it comes to, again, the revenue generators, where does the government need to start looking? And I asked that too, because this afternoon on my way home, I heard on the OECS Carib Link, they were talking about taxing lottery winnings in Grenada. And it's one of those controversial topics that people jump up about a lot. But I don't think we've ever had a serious public debate about the value of our lottery system in terms of government revenue. Because if you don't know, you don't know. Puerto Rico lottery isn't supposed to be over here in the Virgin Islands. Because that is something that they control, again, to fund their government and their country building out and all of these types of things. Again, we building a nation, we need money. So, you know, whether or not that's something that, again, we as a community have to decide what's best for us. So it's just something as a thought to throw out. But not to just say, well, we don't want to do that, but we're in a situation where we can't borrow like we would like to, or we're accustomed of doing. And if the economy isn't moving as you need, it means your taxes, fees, and revenues, that tax revenue isn't moving like how you want it to. So we should always be looking at what's that next thing, or that new thing, or what are we improving on, that we are able to keep the revenue coming in.
Which is a good point, because if I go back to when I was talking about stimulating the local economy somewhat from the housing program, that would only be pad A, because there's small economics and big economics. But the key is, if you don't get a small one going, you won't get your big one moving. I'm of the opinion that the private sector needs a little more help, in that when you look at what is happening, the role of government, which we have to understand, has changed. Government still thinks that they have to be the one.
The economy.
Oh, yes, the economy, the one, but no more. That was in the days when we were building the country. Now government's role is to make sure that they put policies in place, legislation in place to help facilitate the business people. Because when you look and see, I hear people make a statement all the time, and I respect it. They say that no meaningful investment has happened here over the last few years. I don't agree. When you look at Fish Bay, what that family has done out Fish Bay, that is a meaningful...
The industrial park.
Yeah, and all those businesses that are open as a result, that's a meaningful investment. When you look at R&R Malone Complex, what has happened, those are meaningful investments. When you look at Maria's, what she has done lately, those are meaningful investments. Treasure Isle, you know, you have your people.
We could look around town, you see all the different buildings.
So meaningful investments are being made. But the question is, why and the private business sector benefiting more? It is because we have to create a better system to help the private sector, rather than to be a burden to them, especially to our local investors. So we now have to change the way government functions, which is something that I've been bringing to the table the last few years, and I'm going to continue to bring it to the table no matter what side of the aisle I'm in. The days of just having a ministry running new initiatives, in my humble opinion, is gone. I think that to develop your public service, you have to do two things. You have to allow some of them to do some secondment in the private sector, because there are some very good public servants that understand time, but there are also a few who doesn't understand that time is money. But a little stint in the private sector
give them that exposure.
will give them the exposure and will change their mindset. And then when they come back to the public sector, they'll understand better those who don't. But the majority of them do, and they're very good. On top of that, I think it's time that you pool some of these departments and ministries personnel together and have a unit, whether it be the implementation unit. Yes, finance have the financial part of it. But if you, for example, say you're going to do this housing program with Social Security, you pool someone and one of your young professionals that's coming up, you put them over it. If you need somebody from health, you put them in that unit. It's never permanently staffed, but it's permanently run. Depending on the new initiative that you're bringing forth, all the personnel from the different ministries be in this unit to get it done, and you give them time frames. Because if we don't change our mindset of how we do business as government in general, not studying NDP and VIP.
Yeah, not the politicking.
Not the politicking of it. It is systematic part of it.
Yeah.
Then we're going to be spinning top in mud. No matter what new economy we bring, because it'll get stick over here by this ministry, stick over there by that ministry. So we have to pool together resources and have a implementation, research and implementation arm that can research it and have all the players that you need there, from health, from public works, from whatever. They're seconded there in that section. And there you can also pick your new leaders from there, depending on how you perform. And with the new initiatives, depending on how we go, you can also tag on some incentives in terms of whether 2 or 3 increments as a result, if you perform this task and if it's successful. So we have to think outside of the box with how government runs. So those are some of the areas that I'll be pushing for. And because we can't do the same thing over and over and expect new results.
And that was one of the key things, because the session actually at the Business Outlook Conference, where the Premier and the Chief Minister spoke, that I referred to earlier, it was Smart Government was the name, was the thing. And it was actually Smart Government critical to global competitiveness. And talking about those same things that you're saying in terms of having a more efficient public service, because that is key. That even if I am spending, let's say, over 100 million on salaries and compensation, I'm expecting that at least I'm probably trying to get $200 million in return. Because now I'm investing in your human resources, and that's how the system is supposed to play out. Not just I'm spending this money and not getting anything back on it. Even if it's out in the economy itself, like you're saying. Because then now if that shows up in the economy, as far as businesses now are able to expand, new businesses are able to open, that's the ideal role you want to see government playing as far as supporting that type of growth.
Oh yes, and we have to have a mentality to you know, I live with a lot of women and they watch HGTV now and again, so we have to have a mentality like HGTV has when they're doing redesigns. They take the same room, most people, even to me at times, couldn't see how they're going to transform this. They go and they ask you how much you could spend, and they transform it based on that. And when they're finished, if you didn't know it before, you wouldn't know. So that's what I mean, that we have all that we need here. We need some of the best minds to be able to come forward, but we can't have them coming forward now because the system of government doesn't allow it. So we have to change how the system of government is running, so some of the best minds can come forward, because once I don't know about something, those who know, let them do. It don't make you less of a leader. And we have to change our mentality of hold on to things because that is under me and I want to get it. But if we don't get things done with it, so that the next generation could benefit, is best we didn't have it at all.
And that has to be the priority, basically. That we keep that end goal on the front and center,
for sure,
as far as what we're trying to do. Economic development is tied to business development. That's like given. And again, certain things just can't be understated in terms of when we talk about National Business Bureau and taking stock of what it is, the ultimate goal is with programs like that, and what the trade department's role is. Because to me, trade is one of those key cogs in the wheel when it comes to economic growth.
For sure.
And if your trade department isn't on level or on par with where you are trying to get to, you're going to have an issue. So it's something where I think, again, in looking at the service and identifying those key resource centers, as it were, that are supposed to support growth in the private sector, we have to do some major overhauling.
Right.
And getting, the best and the brightest into those types of areas to make sure that we are going to accomplish the goals that we set out to. Because when you hear about places like, I think it was Singapore, making double-digit economic growth without even thinking about it, is almost like what it seems. But what happens is that these people sit down every 5 years and basically for like a week plan what they're going to do in the country for the next 5 years. And you have private sector, you have government officials, you have, all the key stakeholders across your country that make that commitment that, hey, we want to see 10% growth for the next 5 years in our country, and this is how we think we're going to go about it. But you have to have a plan.
Well, you said it correct. You have to have a plan in that, even with the trade, one of the things that I state, and sometimes when you're in opposition, you get clouded because you're given a difference of opinion. So
because of the word opposition.
Yeah, because of the word opposition. And that always amazed me, because sometimes people think because you go on an opposition, you must just go there,
and
shut up, sit down, and don't say anything until...
Either that you're arguing everything, though.
Yeah, so, but is input to help in that we have a grand opportunity, for example, with the cruise pair expansion. I'll give an example. I'm for a credible cruise pair expansion, of course, providing that all the methodologies are followed and is done correctly. But on the land-based side, this is a grand opportunity for the Small Business Bureau to click in. What is the plan that we want to have on the land-based side? And with that plan, how can we take the Small Business Bureau and give enough loans to whether it be 40 different BVI lenders to do 40 different things within the scope of our plan that we have, that we want to see accomplished there by the cruise pair when the passengers come off, or even when the passengers are not there, even when locals want to go in. Now that calls for proper planning. That, for me, now when you do that, is empowering your people, because then your people can go and get loans because the government is backing the plan that their business is going to do. So not two persons will be out there selling necklace or selling maps.
Yeah, all the same merchandise.
So it's the same thing. So you have 40, you have a plan that when the persons come, this is the environment that you want them to meet, and each one have their own niche area. That is what I look at as you rightfully say, as planning for the future and truly empowering your people. Yeah,
that place can easily become a mall, a shopping mall, a serious shopping mall. So it's not just
about your people.
Exactly. It's not just about cruise tourism, but even in terms of the business opportunity that is presenting itself there. And if we plan it correctly, I mean, even if we want to bring in a name brand or two, in terms of, the Coach store draws you in, but then you pass across and you see Bay Rock clothing store, which is one of our local designers. And they say, oh, I like this outfit, and they go in there and they pull it and all of that. So it's all in the strategy again of what it is we're trying to accomplish and who we building it for.
Exactly. Because
it can't just be about we're pushing for foreign investment to the exclusion of our own. And I remember sitting down and reading through the McLaughlin report. It was that one, where in the late 60s, early 70s, they sent in the economists, and she did her study as far as how do we get the BVI off of grant and aid from the UK, and what was needed in terms of the model with growing economy at that time was about encouraging foreign investment to come in. So, we put incentives in place, the Pioneer Act, the Hotel Aid, all of those things. But we haven't evolved those, I think, as far as incentives for our local businesses.
Exactly.
And being now in the field of business consulting and talking with, small business owners and understanding the challenges that they face, there's a lot of work to be done in that area of our incentive policy to encourage those types of things. So even it's like the loan is one part of it, but in terms of now cultivating that business culture that we need to have. Because I remember somebody asking me when I had recently started my company, and they were like, what are you doing now? I understand you left. I was like, yeah, I'm managing director of Smith and Associates. And they were like, oh, you're self-employed? I was like, no, I'm managing director of Smith and Associates, because it is a different mindset.
Yeah.
I am now the employer.
Yeah.
I can't behave as if I'm the employee.
Yeah.
And for a lot of our business people, we have to make that shift.
Yes.
That we are basically chartering our own destinies, and we're going to need to make decisions that will get us to where we want to go to, and not wait for government to do it. Because that to me is one of those fundamental things for getting a stronger private sector.
Not waiting for government to do it, but government must make sure that it creates the environment for it to be
set the platform, so that they could launch off of.
Right. And who does it, don't get involved in that. It's just as a government.
Yeah.
Get involved in setting the platform, as you said, the environment. That is where the role of government in this country has shifted, but we haven't made that shift.
Yeah, we still haven't gone over completely.
You don't need to actually hold investors' hand like before. People have project managers, they have everything. You just make sure the government system is not one there to annoy the local investors or even those who you choose to let in.
Yeah, any investor.
And the system is there to protect your people, but to allow them to invest in the economy with some assistance based on the system that you set up. So we have to look at that and how we're going to keep it viable.
Yeah.
Because if the local businesses fail, we have a major problem in this territory. And for all local people doing what they have to do, and but they have to have incentives, because some people get on them and say they could do better. But when you look at the cost of the light bill, the cost of employing,
business is very
cost
high.
of doing business is very high. Yep. So we have some work to do in that area.
And as you said that now, it reminded me of one of those things again as far as incentives, even with tax, because this is one of those things where in the U.S. they encourage business development by tax breaks.
Yes.
And it's something where again we need to evolve our tax system, that it encourages me to go into business, and employ people.
Yes.
And be honest about what I'm doing. Everything is upfront. I pay my taxes and all of that. So, persons who raise that concern in terms of health insurance now being another tax that needs to be paid is a legitimate concern. Well, we understand that it is something now it has to be paid for. The question now is it viable for certain businesses that haven't, they're not in a position to take the hit. Right. Basically, that is going to happen for persons, because now you have to cover your employees with, you have to pay payroll tax, you have to pay pension, you have to pay social security, and now you have to do national health insurance.
Right.
So it's something for me where even if we had thought about it in regards to, you have one tax across the board that covers all these things, so the money gets split out and goes to the different funds, and it's kind of like minimum impact. As it were to the employer and the employee, because now as an employee you also take a hit in regards to no free lunches, people. Right. So it's something where again these are things that everybody needs to be thinking about and analyzing.
Right.
How do we make our country better? What do we want to see in the next 20-25 years in our country, and what are those decisions that we need to make in that regard. But we're almost out of time, so we're going to take one little quick commercial break, get a word from our sponsors, and be right back. Welcome back. You're tuned into the Vigilante Dialogues, and tonight in the boardroom we've been talking about nation building. One of the themes that I want to carry through the year, getting different perspectives on what it means to different people. Because all of us have to come together the same day, and we're sitting in the same boat and row pull O.
Yeah.
Right down the river.
Yeah,
all right.
For sure.
So tonight with me.
Right.
I know. That's this type of language right
yes,
there. Yeah, all of us in the same boat, we got to pull O. So, we said so much tonight, and there's so much more that could be said.
Yes,
but I think we're gonna wind down on this one, and we're gonna stick a pin in it, and we're gonna pick it up same speed next trip. You know, but we were talking about in terms of economic development. What are your thoughts in terms of diversification? At the conference, they had persons there that were talking about diversifying who we market to in terms of overnight visitors, the importance of finding our niche basically in the tourism industry. What is it that we want to be known for now? And putting that out there, because they talked about the millennials, which is basically the generation after me, you know, the kind of money, the billions of dollars that they spend a year on travel, you know, because they're adventurous, they like to go out, see new things and all of that. So for again, looking at the businesses, understanding those types of things and the shift that's coming, we know marketing in Latin America. So we're trying to broaden that primary industry of tourism. I think there's a lot of untapped opportunity also in the marine sector,
right?
In that regards, and where we would do with that. But talk some more in terms of whether it's broadening the primary industries, things like medical tourism. And I think you were involved at one point with a study for medical school.
That I was.
And what are our prospects for secondary industries? Because I always believe in having contingency plans. Because, you know, as, let's say, for example, with financial services, if that starts to basically exit the stage, what do we have in the wing that is going to replace it or subsidize or complement it? You know, however we want to term it. We've talked a lot about agriculture and fishing. I have a good friend that we got to stop all the talking.
Yes.
That we be doing and get about doing something. So, you know, what are your thoughts there as far as diversification?
Well, you hit some heavy, good topics that I like, and so I commend you for that. The fishing industry, the sports fishing industry, the whole water industry has been untapped by all governments in the past, and we have to do a better job of that. But again, it is not for government to go into them. It is for government to create the environment, the legislation, and put the right fees on it that they'll benefit from it. We have to now use that same small business bureau to help all young men to get the boats that are necessary.
And women.
And well, men and not in terms of the gender.
I might go get those both too.
But you know, because when I thought that women could do just about most of the things that men can do in life, so I speak on both. So you're correct.
I don't want the young women to feel what they
definitely not. They could do anything they put their mind to do. I firmly believe that. So I have two goals. So I have to be careful. So with that, they now have to, as a government, as a people, we have to. This is where the Small Business Bureau comes important. Once we have a plan that we're going to do the fishing industry, we're going to do medical tourism. You see, I spoke about the housing program, but it wasn't in isolation, although I didn't get to finish it. Because when they move out of their apartments and they get in their homes, who's going to fill their apartments? Well, this is where the medical tourism comes in. This is where the medical schools comes in. But it was not for government to go and dictate what will happen with the medical schools, but to put a legislation in place to ensure that when those schools come, that they do not have their own houses, they do not have everything, and we only know that they're here. We have to be careful when we allow new industries to come in, that never again we allow industries to set up in the BVI where our people don't benefit from them. It's only lately some of our people have directly started to benefit from the financial services industry. The indirect benefits have been that, you know, or direct, so to speak, that it goes to the treasury, we make the money. But being major players in that industry is only lately we're experiencing
and billions of dollars.
Exactly. So only lately we're experiencing it, and experiencing it in a time when FATCA has come on, and other countries, if they put that on, then the question will be, why do business outside my country if I'm going to tax? So what you brought up earlier is a real situation. If this trend continues, you're looking at only probably saving, although it's not a popular statement, about 50 to 60% of that industry. Point blank. If all countries implement FATCA or whatever they want to call it, you will ask, why do I do business outside my country?
And there are a lot of other things in there. We don't have time to go into it, but it's something that persons need to go and Google called mid-shore financial services. Because there's onshore, there's offshore, which is where we fall, and now there is a trend of mid-shore. And I heard this last year actually at the same Business Outlook. So I'm encouraging everybody, y'all need to go next year, because it got some stuff that is discussed over there that is very important to us. That mid-shore is rising. That was the title of the article. and what the impact will be to us as an offshore jurisdiction in the financials industry. But go ahead, sir.
No, that's a very crucial point with the midshore. And but like I'm saying, all these things have to work in together, so that because when you have the medical school, which was a passion of mine with the medical tourism, you have a medical school come in that can take about 2 of your floors of the hospital, help with training of the hospital, help have the right expertise here to help even if there are emergencies, but also your people could invest in apartments, your people could invest in building different homes. So
it impacts the real estate
industry. And your people can now go to the bank with lease agreements. So you have to do it where people could benefit. I was also part of a study that got people a little angry, some persons, with the drag racing. But you see, whether it be drag racing, medical school, electronic games, performing arts, sports tourism, we must start to look at these industries. It isn't nothing about whether we want to or what. The racetrack with making sure that some local or investor runs that and put whatever needs to be in place that it runs, and government loses that. These are things
one of those spending cuts.
Right. We must move in these directions. So when people hear me say these things, they sometimes look at the messenger and don't want to look at the message. But that's why I stay consistent with the message. These will help diversify our economy. If we are known here, like St. Thomas is becoming known in the Caribbean for one of the cancer treatment areas, we have to find out 1 or 2 niche areas in the medical section or niche, and say that once you come to the BVI, whether it's OBGYN, physical therapy,
whatever.
Well, the best of it is here. We have to find a niche in that area. We have to find a niche in the sports tourism area. We have to find a niche in the medical school area, because more students coming into the BVI. Medical school students are usually either very rich or very bright. They're not students just
not the average student.
By the wayside. Exactly. So if you could get about 2 or 3 schools here of different kind of schools here in the Virgin Islands, you have at least about 2,000 persons will be looking for apartments, looking for homes. All people now moving their own homes through the Social Security scheme that I'm proposing.
And even as you keep mentioning that, I'm like, yeah, it's time for us, if we're gonna be serious about that, create a housing authority.
And you get
and let everyone else, so the seed money come out of the Social Security Fund, and you have a business plan as far as now how this housing authority is going to set itself up to be viable. We don't do this. We always create these things and then they become albatross on the government's budget that we have to think. So it's never should be a situation where I set something up and then I have to continue to fund it all 10 years down the road. That thing's supposed to be viable in 10 so that I can move on to doing the next thing in terms of building the country.
And we with that too, we have many other industries, even in sports tourism. There's going to come a time, this might sound ludicrous, but there's going to come a time when the BVI is going to have some kind of semi-pro teams coming out of the BVI.
Oh, that's ludicrous. We got some of the best athletes. We got some of the best athletes that are being recruited to play professional sports.
And when they come back, with different sports, whether it be basketball or what, whether we purchase teams that we could do public-private partnership. The public here with the government. The Green Bay Packers have that model. So the teams here, when they're playing home, the more the team do well, the more money they make, the people of the country benefit from it, and the team benefit from it. These are different areas of sport and tourism that we have to start to develop that are going to get our young people interest. It's not just playing a sport. There's a business side to it. There's the accountants, the lawyers, the real estate agents.
Of dollars,
all this is with that with the drag racing, and all this is going to complement the big business. But we cannot focus on big business, hoping for foreign investors to do everything for us. They have their place. They are needed. We cannot develop without them. But we have to set a platform that the small economics can go bigger. That is how this country was built. Investing in the people. Our foreparents held their land, and their land became valuable. In the early part of slavery, the hills were no good land. That's why we ended up with it. And below was the posh land. But now the hills
Yeah.
What
more?
Way more.
What more than 2 feet down the hill?
2 feet down. Yeah, well put. So, and that will give businesses like even yours were into engineering, because right now you're into engineering, but the private sector is not moving much in terms of the incentives is holding them back.
Yeah.
Government is strapped for cash, so they're not moving as much. So it puts a strain on business, technical businesses like yours. So we have to open it and stop worrying about who gets it, and just make sure that we open it so that somebody can get it.
Yeah, we gotta build that platform. Well, Andrew, we're out of time completely, and we definitely gonna come back to pick up this conversation, because you know there's so much things for us to talk about in regards to building this nation that we talk about. So I want to thank you for being here, because I know you have a very pressed schedule
Well,
with the many
I'm
things.
not pressed for time, but before we close, I just want to say my respect to the life and legacy of our late brother, Rai Hodge.
Yes, sir.
God bless his soul. He was one of our greatest poets, one of our greatest minds. I love his outspokenness. He loved the country. He wanted what's best for the country, and he's one of those who come with ideas and not just complain. God bless his survivors, especially his sister, and those who took so good care of him, and all the community that came together to help him during that time. I congratulate them. It shows that the BVI is still a place where unity is strength.
Definitely still
and thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you for being here. You're tuned in to the Vigilante Dialogues. We will be back here Thursdays, as always, 8 p.m. Rebroadcast on Sundays at 6 p.m. So, and you can catch us online, www.cbnbvi.com. So until next time, I'm thanking my sponsors, my guests, and let's continue the change in conversation for a high quality of life in these Virgin Islands. Good evening.